and this is the iTechGear Weekly, episode number 125. You don't want to damage the dulcet tones. Recorded live Sunday, March 16th. Oh my God, tomorrow is St. Patty's Day. Holy smoke.
It is.
2025, live from iTechGear Southwest. As I said, I am Christopher Spera, the editor-in-chief over here at iTechGear.org, and joining us, those, of course, were the dulcet tones, and we don't want them damaged, so please be careful with them. Mr.
We
Chris
can break them
Gavula,
easily.
yeah, thank you. Mr. Chris Gavula, the former contributing editor over at Gear Diary and Pocket Now, and, of course, editor here at iTechGear.org. How are you, sir?
I'm good, sir. I know we're recording at a slightly different time than normal, and
We are.
It's a good thing. It's a good thing. We're all still here. We're all still talking, even though you're talking from Southwest.
I am.
This is good.
Yep.
This
Came
is
down
good,
to
yeah.
visit I came down to visit our listener.
Our listener, and
Yes.
all my love to our family and our listener.
Yes.
I'm just saying. I appreciate it.
You betcha. All right.
Yeah, we're good. We're good.
Good. Also joining us today, the former contributing writer at Gear Diary and currently the host of the Linux Link Tech Show and living in the Retro Arcade podcast, Brother Joe McLaughlin. How are you, sir?
I'm doing quite well. Busy weekend as always.
Awesome,
You are always a busy guy.
Yeah, that's
very
what
true.
That's what my wife says. She's like, "Well, when are you going to be home?" I'm like, "Never." Anywho,
Okay.
All righty, and unfortunately, Dr. Mr. Larry McJunkin, the former co-owner of WUGNET Publications, wasn't able to join us this evening. So,
But he's gone for a good reason, and we're happy for him. It's all good.
Yes, it is all good, and we wish him well. She should be back hopefully next week, if not the week after.
I would think so.
So yeah, but so getting into it, man. I tell you, this is kind of bad.
Yeah,
it really is kind of bad, and I have no idea if it's going to get good anytime soon. This could be really bad. And of course, I'm talking about
that. We have talked about this.
We have. Siri is just pitifully embarrassing, and it is so bad.
You can say it. It sucks.
Well, it sucks, but it's so bad that Tim Cook is getting lambasted and roasted, and there's even been some call from some folks for him to resign over this.
I have heard that too, but let's be clear on 2 points. One is we have always mentioned over and over the last few years of doing this that Siri sucks.
We
all have agreed, and we've all felt this, and nothing has changed. Siri has not gotten worse. There's nothing like that.
It's gotten just a little better, just a squeaker.
It has. But there were things promised, unfortunately, by Apple marketing, who kind of jumped the gun.
Promises were made.
They jumped the gun, and apparently internally, the team working on Siri was very upset. They were very upset at marketing having gone ahead and done this, but they did.
Marketing executives kissed each other's cheeks and the whole schmear. I mean, it was bad.
They did. So what we said last week, to kind of reiterate what we said last week a little bit, was that we knew this is being delayed. That's the big problem. These new services are being delayed, and their thing is they're trying to get them right. And until they get them right, we all agreed last week we don't want to see them release it till they get it right, even if it takes longer. That was our opinion last week. That's what we said.
And it really hasn't changed. It hasn't changed much.
No. But what has happened since then, of course, is that the public is now chiming in and giving their 2 cents worth.
Yeah.
And they're unhappy. They're very unhappy. I'm surprised in my own kind of sense that anybody was putting such heavy stock in this thing being there. But they were. And because they're upset. They're calling for Tim's head on a platter.
They are. And I truly understand why they still are very upset. Promises were made.
I do too.
Promises were made. All right. Things were announced. And Apple isn't one really to announce anything
True.
without actually, having more than a
Well,
decent chance to follow through.
and
So,
I think marketing felt they did because nobody had said no. And I think marketing felt that they needed something to bundle with the iPhone 16 releases in terms of
mhm.
promises, announcements, reason to
Well,
buy,
everybody and
all
their
of this
brother
stuff.
is using
Now,
the two letters. So,
now, don't be surprised at the fact that it was tied to iPhone 16 announcements.
right,
Don't be surprised. I don't be surprised if it turns out that we see another set of lawsuits
right,
and people
Mhm.
saying and people coming
right.
back and call it Siri Gate or AI Gate. I'm sure we'll hear
Hmm.
it because with Apple,
Well,
everything's got to be a gate.
right.
So I'm
Well,
sure somebody
well,
will come back
it's
and say you misled us, and this, I'm sure we'll see some lawsuits as a result of
well.
this.
Let's so Siri is being delayed, and it's being delayed so much. They're talking about
Well, we don't
initially.
know what that means yet.
Well, initially, we were told that iOS 18.4 was going to be
Hmm.
the release where a large amount of AI features would be released to the public and made
Yeah,
available. Now, there were some
and then
improvements
it
with
sounded like
18.
18.5 maybe.
Well,
Yeah.
hang on. There were some
Oh, you're
improvements with
jumping.
18. There were some improvements with 18.0.
There was, there
Um,
was.
and, and I and the best example that I have is I had a, um, a flashing tire sensor light on my dashboard in my 2014 Toyota Highlander, and I said, "Well, okay,
Hmm.
it's iOS 18. Let's ask the new Siri what's going on." And I constructed the question in such a way that I know that the old Siri would have said, "Here's what I found on the web with this for this." But
Hmm. Hmm.
I asked Siri, Siri, what does it mean when a tire sensor light is flashing in a, there's that damn lady again. Somebody get the broom and poke the ceiling. Um,
Yeah.
so I said, hey Siri, what does it mean when the tire sensor light flashes in a 2014 Toyota Highlander? And normally Siri can't handle that complex and that specific of a question. But she came back with the correct answer and basically spit it
Okay.
back to me and said, in a 2014 Toyota Highlander, the flashing tire sensor light means that the car cannot communicate correctly with the tire sensor. All right.
Mhm.
And it surprised and shocked me, and I was very pleased with the results. There were supposed to be a lot more in general
Yeah.
coming out
Well,
with 18.4, and then, like you said, they got pushed to
mhm.
18.5,
And
and
now
now they're
maybe
talking
nineteen, maybe
and now they're
beyond.
talking maybe
Yeah.
19, maybe not. It could be
Hmm.
even it could be even
Hmm.
later than that. Now, Apple
Right.
Hmm.
has a habit of not doing anything with their hardware or their software that is revolutionary. With Apple, it's always evolutionary, right? They take all of the things that somebody else has done, they look at them, they analyze them, and then they improve and make it better.
Uh,
All right, and they build like that going forward and forward and forward.
uh,
Which is why you don't see, those huge different. It's why Apple doesn't have a folding iPhone or
True.
iPad right now. All right, even though we're getting ready to see the Galaxy Fold 7 and the Flip 7,
Hmm.
different hardware generations, 7 different years of devices. Um, Apple still hasn't released a foldable yet. So, and they're talking about it for
Yeah.
the next couple of years. Yet maybe, and we're close. Who knows? But this is about where it's at. And from what I understand and from what I hear, based on the 4 different articles that we're citing in the show notes for this particular subject, um, not only are folks like Tim getting beaten up, but the entire Siri team is afraid to show their
Yes.
faces in the halls at the mothership, right?
Right.
They are grossly embarrassed. They are very upset
Well,
with the way that
and let
things
me
are.
and let me add a little more context in all this
Mm-hmm.
because the thing that's interesting about this it isn't that none of it works. What they're working on most is context sensitive things. And what they're
Yes.
finding is about one time out of three, it doesn't recognize the context correctly and it gives a bad
Hmm.
result.
Right.
That is actually harder to fix than it sounds. But I mean, I make it very simple sounding, but it's really not a simple thing to fix. Understanding context is a big thing with a lot of cues and a lot of factors. So I understand the
Right.
problem. But
Right.
the other piece of this I want to point out is some of the other tools out there, the OpenAI tools and the Google and the Google Gemini tools, they're
Right.
making a lot of mistakes. They continue to make a lot of mistakes. And there was a
Hmm.
side comment. I think it was Craig who said it at Apple. I
Federighi.
think it was
Yeah.
his
Hmm.
comment that basically said, yeah, well, unlike others, we don't want to release ours with mistakes or something to that effect. I'm paraphrasing. It's not exactly
Right.
what he said,
Right.
but there was somebody there had made this comment publicly. Hey, by the way, you know, other people released theirs, but theirs had that kind of mistake. They didn't say that in exactly those words, but yes, the implication
Hmm.
was they acknowledged that they were delaying it, but they were basically saying, yeah, we want to get it right first, is what they were saying.
Right. Right.
And they
And
were kind of pushing that other people weren't getting it right and were releasing anyway.
right.
So
Right.
something I think it
Now,
was something like if we were anybody else, we would have just released it as it is, kind of thing.
correct.
I think
Correct.
that's how they phrased it.
Yeah. If it was anybody else, it would be on the street already. Unfortunately, we want to make this work and work right. The problem that we've got, though, is that, like I said, um, marketing
Well,
men kissed other marketing men on the cheek,
market,
you
and
know,
they didn't. Yeah, and they weren't clear
and
with.
they were, they made promises, dates were exchanged,
And
right?
I'm willing to bet the Siri team was probably internally screaming when they saw this stuff start to come out and went,
Oh yeah,
"Why are they saying this already?"
right,
Knowing that they couldn't meet those deadlines and those
right.
things, and that you got to wonder: did they sit quiet? Nobody up ahead knew that this was a problem, or did they
Don't know.
scream out it? But I know you got to know internally they were screaming about it
Well,
at the time.
absolutely, absolutely. What really
But
kind of
so here
bothers
we
me,
are.
right?
And
What,
you could argue that Tim's mistake isn't that AI didn't get released in time. Tim's mistake was he didn't handle the I'll call it lack of communication between the two groups. That's the failure, as far as I can tell.
well,
Um,
the publicly, the failure is a promise was made and not kept. All right, that's what
but
everybody's
the
pissed
promise
off,
wouldn't.
right?
But if the internal communication had been handled, that promise would never have been made. Is what I'm getting at.
That is
So,
correct. That is correct.
so,
But the promise was made.
but here we
It's
are.
now been
Here we
broken.
are.
Right.
Everybody's screwed up. Everybody's mad.
Everybody, you're
Welcome to the
right.
world.
Right now, this is probably not something that Tim is going to resign over. All right, it's just not. Um, I think it would have. I mean, he has made Apple a butt ton of money. All right,
You
over
know.
since he took over
Well,
for Steve.
and
So,
we have to remember that when he took over, and this came out at the time he took over all those years ago now, um,
mhm.
he did not take over as the brilliantly annoying creative guy that Steve was. He took over as a guy that knew how to work the markets and get
as
parts
the
at lower prices,
as the
and
former chief
that's what he
operating
was.
officer,
And that's
right?
and to be honest with you, that's what he still is today. So
True.
to in many ways, that's his legacy, if you will, at Apple.
Hmm.
So it's gonna be. I don't blame him for misunderstanding, maybe how this or just not getting it communicated up. Because again,
Right.
underlings could have failed to communicate it. We don't know, but he's still at the top of the heap, and he's still ultimately responsible
He's the one that
for
is publicly
for getting that out.
responsible for all
You
of
know,
this stuff, right?
he signed off
It's
on stuff, for
he
whatever
did,
reason, and so buck stops here, kids. And
right?
do I want him to be now? The question then from then on, acknowledging that is, do
Yeah.
we as a group, and we've been doing this a long time now, do we think
Hmm.
it's worthy of boosting our chairman out there kind of thing in this case, or do we say, look, we make mistakes,
I'm gonna say no. That they aren't gonna oust him at all. They won't even think
yeah.
about it. They won't even think about it. Tim has
Well,
made the
who
company
could really,
way too much money. All
and
right.
who's really going to if I take a side note, he's been the one that's really been good at kissing butt in the current against the current government. Who's gonna
Hmm.
who in Apple's gonna take on that role?
Well, there
Because you have
is,
to do
there
that now.
is, there is, and I thought it was Jaws that was set to whoever is
Is it?
I forget. I forget
I
who
didn't think that was.
who
I
the
didn't think
heir
that was quite
apparent
aligned
is.
yet. Okay, I didn't think that was
There
quite
is
lined
an
up yet.
heir
Okay,
apparent, but I don't know that
okay,
he's actually the guy that's going to get the gig,
the
right?
guy. Yeah, good
All right,
point.
I don't know
Okay,
that he's the guy. There's an heir apparent, but the point that I want to make here is that the public is now very upset. I mean, Siri was
yeah,
bad to begin with, and now it's not that she's worse. It's that
and it
she's.
isn't worse. Yeah,
It's
but
not.
it's
It's
not good
actually
enough yet.
better. It's
But
actually
compared to
better, but it's
competitors, it's
not
not
good
enough.
enough. That's it. It's
But
not good enough.
Yeah.
and I'm kind of
Well,
with. But I am.
at one point, Siri at one point would do things for me that I now can't get it to do. So it was better at one point, at least for me, for
Okay.
for my use case.
Hmm.
But you
It
know
was
what?
like,
You know what, Joel? I'd argue the same thing as the difference between Google Assistant and Google Gemini. I'd make the same
yeah,
argument.
yeah,
There are things that
I
Assistant
agree.
did better and still does better,
Hmm.
Yep.
that Gemini doesn't. So maybe that's the nature of the changes that they're making. I don't know, in general. But what I would say is, as we try to, as we, and I'll be honest with you, I'm irritated with, the way this was handled as well from everybody. I'm definitely irritated by it. But I would say, remember though, this guy did just bring us a cheaper MacBook Air.
And he brought
So,
us a cheap, yeah,
Yeah.
we released the iPhone 16e. You've got
so,
M4
so
iPads. You've
he's
got
not
a
completely
cheaper
screwing things up. So I would
M4
say
iPad
no.
Air or a MacBook Air. So
Exactly.
it's not bad. All right.
But
So
those
no,
things that he's good at, he's good at. Those things that he's good at,
very true.
you know, you know.
Very true.
But I'd
Those
like to
things
have
that
seen
have
him
made
handle
him a
this better.
success.
But I'm with you.
Well,
I
I
would
would
like
like
to
Well,
to
have seen it
see
maybe
the
better.
he's
entire
good at.
industry handle it better. You know, I mean,
Well, we're gonna have
this
more.
is not just
Yeah,
just you know uh, um, centered just on Apple. It's not just Apple that's
and
having a
and we're
hard
gonna
time
be
with this.
and we're gonna be talking a little bit more a little later about, the AI
Hmm.
industry in general and the
Other
Yes.
issues.
challenges, other
Yeah.
issues with the
And
AI
other
industry. So,
issues with Apple
but
too, like
and
the
again,
iPhone
Right.
16e.
yeah,
Yeah.
there's lots of things to talk about. But
Well.
staying with the AI conversation at the moment is, I'm not unhappy. I'm not unhappy that they're not releasing Siri changes yet. I am
Hmm.
unhappy with the way that it was all communicated. But as far as it's not being released, I agree with what we said last week. I want them to get the freaking thing right. I want them to take the time to
Hmm.
get it right.
Hmm.
Give me a quality product, because I'm not happy with OpenAI. I'm not even happy with
And
Google Gemini.
I will say this, and it's not an Apple problem alone.
Yeah.
General public outside of our circles,
Hmm.
as in
Sure.
IT folks, people do IT for a living, could
Hmm.
give two shits about AI.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. This screaming match is not universal.
No.
Yep.
It's
In fact,
really
No.
not.
most people I know say, "I don't want AI." They
Yeah,
literally
No.
say
I'm
that.
with you,
It's
Joe.
like that's what they say.
Yeah. No.
Yeah, that's
I
very much
agree.
true.
I agree. I
But
agree
here
that
we are
there's.
once again, getting our heads excited off about nothing. I think it's nothing. I think it's not important. I'm upset with the mistake, not with the fact that it's not ready. That, with the mistake of
True. I would
how
be
the
very, very
communication was handled.
surprised. I would have been very, very surprised if it was actually ready. Because
Yeah, me too.
what then would Apple have done? All right. What nut did they crack and that
Hmm.
everybody else hasn't gotten yet? Right. What is
Well,
it, or
sure.
what would it have been? What would it have been that pushed
Well,
them over the edge that would have made it a
well,
success?
and then there's that whole
Right.
Chinese AI startup
Yeah.
that is the.
Yeah.
But people have to remember, they didn't exactly start clean. I think they just leveraged the work of everybody else first. They didn't like come
Probably
up
did.
with something new and brilliant. As far as I can tell, they leveraged
Agree.
everybody else's stuff and leapfrogged off of that. So
Agree. Yeah.
it is what it is. So I'm trying not to get too excited about that. But that may come in decide on us and surprise us all anyway, even before tomorrow comes. We don't know
Yeah.
what that's
Yeah.
going to lead to. But they're
And
not done, are they?
speaking, and
And they're not done yet, are
speaking,
they?
no, they're not. And speaking of the iPhone 16e, guess what has Bluetooth audio issues?
Huh?
Could it be
What?
the iPhone
What?
16e?
What?
Huh?
Yeah.
What you
Yeah.
say? Yeah.
That's basically it.
Yeah. All right.
Oh,
Yeah.
here we go.
From what I see, the iPhone 16e is having the classic Bluetooth issues where audio is being streamed audio being streamed from the 16E to a Bluetooth speaker periodically stutters or cuts out, which is a classic Bluetooth problem that has been had
Well, I was going to say, I've heard this in Apple
well over
devices
the years.
before. I've heard this in Android devices before. The Bluetooth headsets, my headset is not 100% compatible with. I get this on my PC all the time. I have problems with Bluetooth headsets on my PCs, no matter what Bluetooth headset I use. So here we go.
Yeah.
Here we go again, to me.
Again on our own, yes.
Again on our own.
Yeah, yeah, there's a song in there somewhere. But this is the new C1 chip that Apple has. Well, actually, it's thought that it might be the new C1 chip. This is actually not.
I don't want to
being processed out of the C1. It was thought that maybe because the new chip. No, the C1 doesn't handle Bluetooth and Wi-Fi. They've got the U1 or the U2 chips for that, and they've also got Broadcom related components in the device to address Bluetooth. So I'm hoping that this is just something that they can handle with a iOS or a special update for the 16E. But
I will say, in the history of Bluetooth, the problem with Bluetooth has always been the protocol is not a protocol. It's been kind of a half-handed. Everybody's handled it a little differently.
Yeah.
And there have been compatibility problems between headsets and Bluetooth devices like phones and tablets and computers.
Well, this goes back to
years.
2000. This goes back to the early 2000s, right? When Bluetooth started to be a thing.
But this is one of those things where folks like us who have been around the block a few times have seen this coming and going for a long time. This is not an Apple problem per se, but every time a new device comes out that needs Bluetooth headsets, they always seem to have a shaking out period. And that's how this strikes me. I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with the 16E that can't be fixed with a software update down the road. It's just, okay, here's compatibility things again. Let's get this sorted out. And it's just another one of these layers.
Right.
To me.
But since this has been going on for 20 plus years, because this is something that's been going on for 20 plus years, this has been a constant or a very common problem. You would think that this particular type of issue would not be something that would be experienced. But
I still have this problem with my work computer. My work computer isn't 20 years old. They didn't figure it out for there either.
That's a Windows machine
the Windows drivers still have issues. So what the heck, I had hoped Apple would have done a little more specking out, or not specking out, vetting of it before they released it.
Yes.
But again, there's so many variations on Bluetooth and so many variations on headsets out there. Who knows what got missed here specifically, but
back in the day, we used to go ahead and attribute this to the type of profile or the quality of the profile that device, the affected device had. If it wasn't coming across clearly, or if there were sputs and sputters, or cracks and whatnot, where the speaker would cut out, it's all because the profile isn't robust enough. There isn't enough in the profile for the audio to stream correctly, or to ignore other kinds of interference or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's the case here, or if it's something else completely.
I don't know.
I would hope it would be something else completely.
Yeah.
I.e. that this is the software QA guy in me saying that we should have been able to squash the bug by now, right?
And now for something completely different. But I suspect the device, the problem is different with every new device. It would be my guess. And that's why they don't get it squashed, because it's a different problem every time, or a slightly different problem, or a slightly different variation in the handling. I don't know. Because Bluetooth is very timing sensitive, especially the audio, and there's a lot of tricks to this. So I get that it might be different, but even if it's different, I would have preferred a little more time had been spent, and this had been squashed before the device was released. But to be fair, devices have very, very locked in timetables a lot.
They do. They do.
If it's working on 95% of the devices, 95% of the time, it doesn't take much to get a lot of squawking online. It doesn't take much at all. So who knows? Who knows how many people this affects?
That leaves you with 5% of the devices having problems 5% of
Which
the
is a
time.
lot, which is enough. Which is enough.
You know,
To trust me,
which is not bad, but
it's not great either. So I get it.
no.
Okay, but
So
but
you, but
we're still not done.
no, we're not.
There's more.
But wait, there's more.
There's-
Yeah. So the interesting thing, and there's a lot that's been going on with this next topic, and there's been a lot of talk about it too.
and speaking about some Bluetooth devices,
yes, anybody that uses TikTok will know that all over TikTok you see the boyfriend is or the girlfriend is sitting in the car and the boyfriend comes stomping out and he's all pissed off because everybody around him at the girlfriend's house is speaking Spanish, and even though he's Hispanic in heritage, or at least appears to be so, he's all bent out of shape because he doesn't understand what she's saying. So the girlfriend says, "Here, try these live translating in real time earpods or earphones, and you'll be able to understand what they're saying about you." So apparently, live translation is also coming to AirPods. Woohoo!
yeah, and it's going to use the Apple Translate app, which is not a bad app. Relies on very traditional methods for translation, unlike Google, which uses kind of a machine learning thing. But the problem I have with it is it's a handful of languages. It's maybe a dozen languages compared to Google, which has like 70, or something.
Which has about half of the world's languages. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and this doesn't have as many, so it has limited application, limited usage. I'd like to see them make it where it was flexible and leveraged other back-end options, if you will. I would like to see it be able to leverage Google Translate or Microsoft Translate or whoever's translate you wanted to use. All of which have applications on the iPhone, all of which have them available. That's what I'd like.
Right. Now, if both people are using these kinds of things, what's interesting about this is then you get the universal translator effect if both parties.
True, right? But again, remember,
I could speak Spanish, you
could
speak English, and we get the stuff in our.
Remember, it's not the headphones doing the work; it's the phone doing the work.
The
headphones are still just a Bluetooth audio connection with a couple of extra options when you tap or whatever you're going to do to
that's true.
Tell it to go. We're seeing this more and more show up on Android devices as what? No. We're showing this on Android devices. Samsung has its own implementation. On Google devices, it's called interpreter mode. And there are variations on this. And to be honest with it, even in those, they don't work quite as well as you would think they would work. They're relying on you to say the words a certain way that the translate has to recognize them. And you have to understand there's a slight pause to everything all the time. So it's not as natural showing as you see it on TikTok or as you see it on the Samsung ads. It's not quite that smooth, but it's a step in the right direction and it's getting better every day. I give it a few more years in AI being involved, and this is going to be, an astounding.
Oh, sure. It's going to have, you will definitely have your universal translator, but in say 5 to 7 years.
Yeah. So I'm glad to see this. It's a good thing. It's a big thing, but I'm kind of saying, take it with a grain of salt. Don't get too excited yet. It's a step in the right direction, but it's a long road.
Apple Translate does not have enough.
Not to me.
In its bag of tricks in order to handle enough languages.
Its Translate app isn't quite as good as Google's, and it's and it's not as many languages choices.
Right.
The other thing that all of these translate programs have and translation methods have is they don't understand things like gender, and they don't understand things like formal and informal yet. They don't know how to interpret. So without those things, it makes live translation a lot harder.
Right, and they're going to be local dialects or slang words.
But that makes what that means is you also run the risk of it gives you a translation that's informal when you really needed a formal one, and you say what it said, or they hear what it said, and the other person gets insulted because you just gave them the wrong form of address. There's a lot of challenges, or they give you the male when they should have given you the female. They give you the female when they should have given you the male. They don't know because there's a lot of languages where the words you say are different if you're a man speaking it versus a woman speaking it.
Correct.
And I don't even know what to do with non-binary folks in terms of this stuff. I have
Oh,
no
I have
idea how you handle that,
no clue.
linguistically speaking. And I don't want
No
to, I don't want
clue.
to go down that path. But the point I'm getting at is these things are far from the end of the road yet. They're far from perfect yet. They're
Oh,
far from
sure,
where any
sure.
of them are, and even the best of
Right,
them are not there yet. They're
right.
getting there.
They are, and
It's an
speaking of
exciting
getting
road.
there, I mean, it is an exciting road because Apple just released some
Ah,
really
yes. Speaking of
interesting,
messaging,
good
speaking of communicating,
functionality.
yeah,
They just went ahead and released some new functionality in
yeah,
their AirPods 2, right, for hearing aids and whatnot. So this is building on
yeah.
all of that to really add something really kind of cool and interesting
It's
into
true.
their AirPods and streaming processes and products. But the
And we're going to
other
talk about
thing,
more communication from
more
Apple, more communication
communication.
things.
They are
Mhm.
now supporting end-to-end RCS encrypted messaging with Android, which I think is kind of interesting. What do you think, Joel?
Well, I think it's needed. I don't know if it'll completely go away from the green bubble issue that some idiots have with text
Ugh,
messaging.
yeah.
Mm,
But it's something that needs to happen. I personally think because you know I, I think not so much for folks that know what the hell they're doing like us,
hmm
but more for people
Hmm.
that decide, well, why don't I just text you my credit card number? That's not a
hmm
good idea.
Uh,
Yeah,
yeah.
even with this, it's not a good idea. But at least it's not gonna get
Sure,
snagged on road.
Well,
sure.
and I was gonna say, I work supporting call centers for things,
hmm
and we actually have very strict rules as to how that data can and cannot be transmitted. So,
Yes,
hmm
we're
yes.
very, very picky about how that's handled, and that is an administrative problem, not a technical problem, kids.
Right.
That's the bottom line. But I think I said in the pre-show, I was kind of
hmm
surprised because I thought that
This is
encryption
where
was
I was just going to
automatically a
go.
part of RCS. I thought it was part of
Right.
the protocol. I didn't realize it was an add-on to the protocol and that it wasn't being handled out the door. I thought it was already in place out
Right.
the door. Now this is Google who handles the servers getting into agreement with Apple as to how
It's
they're
not
going
what
to
the
do
article's
this.
saying. Well, that's not what the article's saying. It's just
What does the article
basically
say?
adding to the protocol.
No, I
So
agree, but that's not. But encryption was part of the original protocol, and so somehow that got lost somewhere. I don't know what happened,
yeah,
but I
yeah.
thought it had been implemented.
Google Messages has had end-to-end encrypted RCS messaging for years. So that's the
Right.
one part where you're thinking it's Google. But I think
No, no, it is
that's
Google's.
just
The Google handles the RCS servers. Google
I'm
owns the
not
RCS
seeing.
servers. They
No,
do.
the RCS servers would be owned by the carriers.
No, they're not because they're good. They're Google standard. If you look at the history of when RCS was released for Apple, they talked a lot about it at the time. The servers that passes through are Google servers, just like Apple's messaging is handled through iMessage Apple servers. RCS is handled today in America through Google servers. Maybe it's handled different in parts of the world differently, but in this country, it was handled by Google servers. Now, unless they've
So
changed that,
So
so
according to the article that we're citing in the show notes from The Verge, Apple introduced RCS support to iPhones as part of an iOS 18 update in
they
September.
did.
All right. And while Apple's proprietary iMessage already supported end-to-end encryption, this
Hmm.
wasn't
Hmm.
extended to RCS messaging because the previous
Interesting.
RCS standards didn't provide cross-platform support. Google
Right.
Messages also enabled end-to-end encryption by default for RCS tests, but only for conversations between Google Message and users were using end-to-end, right? And not those exchanged with iMessage. So now cross-platform, it works.
Okay, but I
So
understand
within
that the RCS
within
standard,
Apple,
yeah,
it worked. Within Google, it
Google it worked.
worked, and now you can
Mhm.
cross-pollinate,
But
and
I
that's
but I
what's
still I
that's the
still
news.
but I still argue that the servers we were using Google standards were Google servers. That RCS servers were not being run by the carriers. The carriers had to
Right.
enable access. They had to do that, but they
Mm-hmm.
weren't handling it. Now maybe I'll do some research. Maybe we'll talk about it next week a little bit or something.
Right.
Um, yeah. But the point I'm getting at is no matter how you look at it, until they enabled it on the endpoint, the Apple endpoint, it wasn't going to happen. No matter how you look at it. And so clearly
Right.
they didn't, and we all thought they did, but they didn't. Okay.
Right. Right. So So Google, their spokesperson named Ed Fernandez told The Verge that we're excited to have this updated
Of
specification
course they did.
from GSMA and work as quickly as possible with the
Right.
mobile ecosystem to implement and extend the important
Yeah.
user protection to cross-platform RCS messaging. So again,
Yeah,
each
part of our
ecosystem.
universal profile 3.
Well,
Right.
remember, RCS as a protocol, the standard never got accepted anywhere. Google
Right.
was the only one that used the standard
Right.
for the
But
longest
again,
time. So that's cool.
in each individual ecosystem, everything worked. So if you were all Apple in your conversation
Or all Google it worked. Yeah.
or all
Gotcha.
Google, you were good within. All right, it's now the cross pollination. So your Apple and your Google folks can go ahead and
Well, this is
communicate,
good
and
though.
they will have
No matter how we slice this up, it's a good thing.
absolutely,
It's a good step forward, and even if whether we thought it happened before or not, it's a good step forward. I'm happy with it.
absolutely,
Happy to see it.
You bet. All right, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to move us to our mobile Linux segment. All right,
You do that.
and I just did. And interestingly enough, speaking of Google, apparently they are ditching their classic Google Assistant for Gemini later in 2025. Is this a good thing,
Right.
Joel? Is this a good thing?
That is something I'm still trying to determine myself.
Okay.
I know since Gemini started, certain things have become not as nice on Google Assistant. For example, say I'm driving and I got my Android Auto all hooked up and I want to know something. I hit the little microphone button that says, "Hey G, tell me about this," or does blah blah blah, and then it like looks at me like I'm dumb. So I mean, in the assistant used to just do it,
Yeah.
So now it's kind of transitioning to, and I don't know if it's still using the assistant or there's some back end going to Gemini, whatever it is. But like when I try to open up the assistant, which is still an app on my phone, it says open Gemini or switch to Google Assistant. So then you go to Gemini, and then you got the Gemini.
Yeah, I think it's going to use whatever the default on your device is,
Yeah.
first.
Right.
I didn't change mine because there were things that Assistant did that Gemini does not do.
Gemini does, right.
But with every new release of Gemini and every patch Gemini, they add more in. So, what I say today could be wrong and change tomorrow kind of thing.
Right.
But so far I'm not thrilled, but
Yeah, Google's plan is to put Gemini on your phone as its AI-powered assistant going forward. And this has been an option for some time now, but it will become the only on-device option later this year. So
it's disappointing. Unless they fix everything in it, it's disappointing. So
right. So, and it's going to be in everything, meaning their tablets, Android Auto, smartwatches, headphones, smartphones, everything. All right. Even your smart home devices like Nest Hubs and speakers and TVs and displays will also move over to some sort of new experience powered by Gemini. So,
thing is, I think this is probably too early, in my opinion, to do that.
Yeah. I think it's the right long-term strategy, but I think you're right.
What is it? What is it though that's making everybody rush?
Marketing
in the Apple segment.
Marketing.
Well, in the Apple segment, right? I mean, they were wanting to use Apple Intelligence to push iPhone sales. All right, and all the marketing teams, again, with the rings and the kisses and the drinks and the whole thing, they're all
smooching, all that stuff. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. It's all about moving units. I mean, Apple's had no problem doing that. Google's had no problem doing that with anything up to this point. That and it hasn't included AI. And now they're all trying. Well, this is the latest thing since sliced bread. But why are they pushing it? It's not ready yet. Why is everybody and their brother saying it needs to be time? Why isn't it done? Because it's not done. It's complicated.
Well, we're going to talk about this again shortly, aren't we? because it's just a topic that doesn't go away.
It's just the things that worries me is that with all AI stuff is it doesn't matter who it's from. I've asked certain questions and it's either not been able to tell me or it's been wrong. I've had it actually give me wrong answers and
crazy answers.
Right.
Yeah.
And at least with Google Assistant, if it didn't know, at least do a Google search, which really should be the default for the assistant. I mean, it should not be like it is. Just and it's really early to do this, in my opinion. And I would love it if Google would wait, but they're not going.
But to kind of step back to the rushing conversation, like we were talking about rushing, we have another interesting statement that's come out about where they're going, didn't we?
Well,
rushing.
I'm gonna flip flop a couple of stories here. Let's get into what's going on with what's happening
kind of where
right
I
now.
was going with it.
Right. So OpenAI and Google have both asked the U.S. government to allow their AIs to train on copywritten material that they don't own. Now, let's again remember that the AI is only as smart as the things that it trains on, i.e. the data that it has access to.
And let's also note that the reason they want this is to move this crap along faster.
Right.
They want to get this to happen faster and learn faster and all of that. So
again, and I agree. But what really I think is getting me and bothering me with this is it's not theirs. They don't own the copyright. And as you said in the pre-show, unless they're going to make an individual copyright request to use specific copywritten material that they don't own for each and every item that they want to use, as they should. All right, because it's not theirs. This isn't theirs. That isn't theirs. The other isn't theirs, et cetera, et cetera. Unless they plan to do that, they shouldn't get access to anything. They shouldn't get access to all this information, in bulk.
It fundamentally violates what copyright law was designed to do in the first place.
Thank you.
It's my material. You owe me something if you want to use it, or you have to make a negotiation deal with me, or whatever it might be.
Right.
I own it. I did the work. Why do you have the right to take it? This is not eminent. This is not eminent domain. So
correct.
It doesn't work that way. But so they want to bypass that. They want the government to help them bypass that.
Right. Which if they do it, there's going to be an immediate lawsuit being filed for violation of the First Amendment for freedom of speech and ownership of speech, et cetera, et cetera. And there's going to be an immediate stay that's going to get put on that.
Well, my understanding is that the reason for triggering this request now is because of the leaps that the Chinese companies have made in AI. But the problem is their leaps may be based on, we're just going to call it gray market data in the first place. They didn't necessarily get there completely openly, is the question. And we don't know. But the point is, if they didn't, they want this as a way to sort of help them.
If they didn't, and this is us trying to go ahead and
it's
say,
a big if,
hey,
guys.
Right. Hey, our competition is leaps and bounds ahead of us, and if you don't give us this material to look at, then the Chinese, who have this gray market data
or something,
right? It's
something
going to.
like
We're going to be so far behind in terms of AI being intelligent enough to do X, Y, and Z that it's going to be a problem.
I don't know if it's a valid argument or not, but let's assume for the moment that it is a valid argument. Let's assume that you still can't violate copyright, kids. I mean, we have to have some line in the sand here. It's still copyright material. People own it.
Well, I don't think they should have it, but I also think we just talked about whether an AI is accurate or not, and if it doesn't have this information, people are gonna ask copyright related information.
They
I
are.
think like it's just going to happen. So then on those things, it's not going to get you a message. So is the AI going to be useful
I would agree
if it
with you,
can't tell you
but
about those
again,
things?
to me, that's the problem for the developer of the AI, and they need to
Right.
go get the copyright data and pay for the copyright data if they want to use it in
Right.
their product.
Right.
That may end up making AI not
You're
go
right.
away.
That's
Actually,
a
I mean, it just
possibility.
might be because it's like it's like
Mm-hmm.
either we bring out one that's hobbled and can't tell you a dang thing about any of the any copyrighted data whatsoever,
Right.
or 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 we skirt the
Well,
rules,
but again,
or
at
we
the
pay through the nose.
yeah,
Either way, and that's the other thing too. You know, we can't. We have yet to. I've yet to see. All these companies are talking about neural processors and stuff that's building
mm,
into your
Mm-hmm.
mm.
Mm-hmm.
chips, and
Well,
almost every AI still uses cloud things. Every
Right.
one.
but
Right.
at the end of the day,
So,
they're wanting to
mhm.
do this to make their products better. And why? Because their products ultimately will make them money.
True.
Means you need to pay for the raw materials used to make your product. End of story, as far as
Mm-hmm.
I'm concerned.
And I'm the not the I'm the first one that would say the government shouldn't control
Yeah.
AI, but maybe it should. I don't know. You
Well,
know,
who's going to do it,
Um,
right? The industry
right?
certainly isn't doing it. We said that initially. We'd hope the industry would put its curbs. They haven't done it
yes.
at
Yes. No, the
all.
industry, no, there are no bumpers. There are no bumpers. The industry hasn't put them up. The government has tried to put them up, but those executive orders that have powered that
Mhm.
are absolutely a laughing stock.
No.
The 21 to 20 something, almost 30 something pieces of legislation that may or may not be circulating through the Congress right now um,
Oh,
are
and we
laughable
yeah.
at best.
And
And
we said this a while ago. Executive
yes,
orders are not the way to solve this problem. You need to have
no.
laws passed in Congress, and they're not doing it. They're
Well,
just not
again,
doing it.
they're not doing it because they don't understand it. It's hard for them to
Well,
go to
not only that,
negotiate
but not only
stuff when
that,
they don't understand what's
tech
going on.
lobbyists, the tech lobbyists punch a lot of freaking money into these coffers of these
Mm-hmm.
politicians. So they're
Mm-hmm.
not inclined to do any. They want to do something that looks good on paper but doesn't really do anything. That's what they want to
Mm-hmm.
do because
Exactly.
that's if we could get lobbyist money out of it, we'd be much better. But that's not going to happen
Oh,
anytime soon either.
no,
Um,
True.
no, it won't.
but the point is, this is going to get stuck. And again, again, for me, the bottom line is you want to use the data, pay for it because you're going to turn around and make money on it in the back end. Why should you make
Mm,
money on something you didn't pay for?
right,
If General Motors tried to build cars made out of steel that they didn't pay for, you
right.
think that would fly? No.
No, no,
So
and it's the same
it's the
thing.
same thing. It's
It's
the
the same
same
thing.
issue. So they,
Right.
uh, what are you going to do?
Well, we're going to move on to the next story. That's what we're
We're
going
going to
to
move on to the
do.
next story.
All right, which is sort of a little happy thing. I don't know, right, Joel?
Yeah.
It's a little happy thing, right? Android 16 Beta 3
Yeah.
has been released. What's new in Beta 3, Joel?
So Beta 3, they have broadcast audio support. Pixel 9 devices now support RICast broadcast audio with compatible LE audio hearing aids. This is part of the
Oh,
Android push to enhance audio accessibility
okay.
in public venues like airports, concerts, and
Nice,
classrooms. Blah.
nice.
Outline text for maximum text contrast. Users with low vision now have a better experience thanks to new outline text feature instead of the older high contrast text.
Oh,
Android 16 now draws a larger contrasting area around the text to improve legibility. Well, that's good,
That's cool.
especially since I'm getting old.
Mm-hmm.
Local network protection testing. This beta introduces the ability to test a local network protection feature, which will eventually require apps to ask for specific permission for local network access. In Beta 3, this is
hmm.
an opt-in feature, and you can test it by running the following command in ADB shell. So
Nice.
give you
Well, there you go.
the ADB command that you can send from your laptop to your phone to enable that. So
I've used ADB to assist with like file transfer things, so it's going to be interesting to
yeah,
see.
in I
Yeah,
use ADB to like if I get anxious waiting for the over the air update, but the updates aren't
yeah, yeah.
posted to
There
the
you go.
website. I always
Right.
do that because I'm crazy. But anyway,
So interesting to
Right.
see. Interesting, very
uh,
interesting.
So when, all right, so this is in beta 3. When does Android 16 hit the general population?
that's a good question. I don't think they have the answer yet.
No,
But
they do. They do. It's Android
they
16
do and they don't.
is set for a
Ah,
major
Major
release.
SDK
Well, it's set
25 or quarter
Q2 of
two.
2020.
Right.
So that's
oh,
April, May, June, right, of
Right.
this year, right? And then there should be
But
an
that's just the
API
SDK. That
update,
doesn't right.
right?
That
There
doesn't
should be
tell you when
another,
it's going to hit the phone. Right.
right,
yeah.
right. No, but that's when
So,
it will be released to the carriers who are responsible
yeah.
for adapting it into their phones, right? So,
Right.
or other Android type
If they
devices.
even do that anymore, because a lot of the carry like I had a long time ago had a problem with the Android phones that wouldn't update
Mm-hmm.
because I'm on Verizon. I haven't had that problem. In 4 phones probably. So I
Yeah.
Yeah.
mean, every
So
phone I've had lately, I've been able to get up to date. Verizon doesn't have as tight of lock on the firmware as they used to.
You know,
So
I have an AT&T phone that was bought through AT&T, and they unlocked it, but I still can't update it unless I shove an AT&T SIM into it. Still won't update.
which
interesting.
is so
Interesting.
weird. Which is
Yeah,
so
it's
weird.
annoying.
So Android 16 is set to be released in Q2, so April, May, June of this year. There should be an API update or just minor
Hmm.
drivers and whatnot later on in Q4. All right.
Okay.
They're sticking with quarterly updates, so Q1 and Q3 you'll have some smaller updates aimed at improving stability, and at the same time, extra effort is going to be put into the Q2 release
Oh,
on as many
okay.
devices as possible. And we've got a NeoWin link in the show notes that will also
Of
have
course we do.
yes, we'll also have a link near the bottom of the article if you wish to try out Android 16 Beta 3 on your supported Pixel device. You'll have a way to get there to find all that yummy Android 16 Beta 3 goodness. So,
Okay.
yeah. So I'm going to move us to our Windows segment, but I'm going to do it right after this brief message.
Hi. This is Christopher Spera from iTechGear.org. I wanted to talk with you today about becoming a contributing donor to the site. iTechGear.org has been around for almost 15 years. In fact, our anniversary is just around the corner on January 10th, 2025. 15 years. Where has the time gone? I've never really asked for any kind of donations for the site. It's always been about me providing value to you, a site visitor or podcast listener. The iTech Gear Weekly is now in its 4th year of production, and Chris G, Joel, and Dr. Mr. Larry McJunkin and I are having a really great time providing you with some of the best free tech talk available from time-tested original internet writers, testers, site founders, and professional writers and editors on the internet. I truly believe that our crew has some of the best and most qualified pundits and commentators on the internet today. And we're not hobbled by any kind of sponsorship or affiliated relationship or other time-bought posts. It all comes from the heart. Unfortunately, times are kind of tough. And since the COVID-19 pandemic of 2020 to 2023, yes, almost 3 full years, times have become increasingly difficult for small independent sites like iTechGear.org to stay afloat. I normally do this with a portion of the salary I make from the day job. But with the IT market so tight right now, it's really difficult sometimes for many to make normal household ends meet, let alone fund a site like iTechGear that might decide to bring in a buck or two. It ain't easy. If you find any of our content on iTechGear or from ITGW to be of any value at all, I would seriously appreciate you donating as little as just $1 to the cause. While we do have a Patreon site, it's hard to keep one website up, let alone two. And since it's really only me doing the work, our Patreon site hasn't really helped us at all. If you can make a donation to the site or to the show of any amount, I'd be forever grateful. All donations will go to site maintenance, hosting, podcast hosting, and everything iTechGear related. Donations can be made to my PayPal account at chris@itechgear.org. Make a donation. We'll thank you immediately on the next ITGW episode and voice our gratitude. I want to thank you. We appreciate your consideration, time, and attention. Now let's get back to the latest iTechGear Weekly episode.
And welcome back to the iTechGear Weekly, episode number 125. You don't want to damage the dulcet tones. So going ahead and getting into our Windows segment. We've only got really the one story, but and unfortunately for this week, there is no continuation of the Mistake-a-thon. So those of you that have been, chugging along with us, just wait. Microsoft will screw something else up later.
I'm patient.
Yes.
They eventually
unless
deliver.
Yeah, I was going to say, unless you think that in our next story that the guy that they picked here is a mistake, which
but it isn't a Microsoft mistake. So
but it isn't a Microsoft mistake, but it does have a huge impact on the Wintel sort of technology stack. Intel has got a new CEO, but the question here that I think everyone is asking is it enough to right the ship, or is it too late, right?
Take us back for a moment for folks who might not remember. December, there's been a lot of problems with Intel. Intel chips have not been keeping up with the competitor. And I'm trying to kind of be nice about it a little bit, but yeah, they haven't been keeping up, and they haven't been keeping up on what they promised. So the previous CEO left in December, and they've been looking since December.
Right. And on Wednesday, on just this past Wednesday, Intel has said it had named Lip Bhutan as the new CEO. And he was previously the CEO of Cadence Design System, who makes software used by all the major chip designers, including Intel. And his appointment comes 3 months, like you said, after Pat Gelsinger resigned from the CEO role in December. So
now, of course, the big question is, can he right the ship? Is there time for him to right the ship?
Is there time for him to right the ship? And what is he going to do? This guy's got a huge job in front of him. He either needs to go ahead and lay down the mandate, buy the licenses, go do whatever you've got to do, kiss whatever butts you've got to kiss, mend whatever fences and relationships that you have to mend with the ARM community, and get us a license to use the technology so that we can go ahead and push out a ARM-based chip in order to get us into the relevant market, or do something else. And I don't know that this guy has got it. I don't know that any guy's got it. I don't think there's anything wrong with Tan. I just don't know that he's got anybody who has the opportunity to do this. Now, interestingly enough, Intel's shares rose over 12% in extended trading on Wednesday. So
Well, I think it's a couple things are important here. It's I'm glad to see the market's up for it a little bit. I don't know if it's a little premature. We'll see. But it's important to note that when we talk about ARM based chips and the competitors that are coming from the ARM based chips are reduced instruction set chips, and IBM used and not IBM, excuse me, Intel used to have that in their kind of repertoire.
Yep.
Right, and they let it go essentially. So now they're playing catch up at best, and they're trying to sort of sell the current, what we call Intel chips today,
Right.
as competitive. And unfortunately, they
Well,
are
they're
faster
really
than their predecessors, but they run hotter, they draw more power. They're not improving. They're not doing the improvements that ARM is doing.
The two things
Right.
that they really need to concentrate on, well, it's not speed, all right, or even really performance. It's heat
It's
Yep.
speed
and
Because I'm
use of
roasting in
power.
front of this
and
Intel
use of
based
power.
laptop right now.
Right.
Yeah,
So
you
that
can
they have
you
to,
can heat a
they
small
generate
house with that.
Yes, you can.
Yeah.
I remember, well, hell, back in 2019,
Hmm.
there was a big, huge heat wave in Chicago, and our air conditioning went out at the company that I was working at. And as the ranking executive member in that office, um, I basically sent everybody home and said, work from home. All right. Because I don't
Hmm.
need the added bodies adding heat, and I don't need all the extra computers in that office adding heat when I'm worried about whether or not the servers in the server room, which is a small little closet, all right, is going to be able to survive in the heat without any kind of air conditioning, because all of they had air conditioners around, and they were shoving the exhaust from or the return from all of the portable air coolers up into the tiled ceiling, which ran directly back into the big old hole in the server room. So all the heat was coming down into the server room, making the servers all that much hotter. And so we had a huge problem with that. Anyway, so they've got to work on heat and power consumption. And what's really kind of sad is that Tan is the fourth permanent CEO in the last 7 years.
Ugh, that does not
That's
bode well.
no, I mean, Brian Kransnitz resigned in 2018 after an inappropriate relationship with an employee. Bob Swan jumped in 2019. He departed 2 years later after Intel suffered numerous blows from competitors and chip delays. And then Swan was succeeded by Gelsinger. And while he took over in 2021, he was never really able to get it to turn around. All right. And their products and revenues continued to decline. So now he's out and Tan is in. And this guy better, I mean, this guy, obviously, he's got a parachute that's made of platinum, not gold,
Yeah.
platinum. All right. Because I wouldn't have taken the role without a platinum parachute.
Oh, unless they got some clear set plan, and they're gonna have to communicate that soon, because
Yeah.
people are not gonna keep putting up with this if they don't
Oh,
communicate it soon.
no. I mean,
So weren't you mentioning that Intel has got a plant nearby that they're not opening, or a facility nearby they're currently not opening
In
because of these
Ohio.
delays? Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
Nearby
yeah.
you, that they're not opening. They were gonna do it was gonna be a lot of a few hundred jobs and all these other kind of exciting
Yeah,
things.
it's the one
Right.
that the Biden administration really touted, and Biden's now out of office and hasn't even made one single chip there yet because it's not done.
Right.
So I mean,
Because Intel's definitely struggling despite the help. They're
Oh, they
struggling.
are. They are really struggling. So,
So
and it's an important direction that we need to go, especially with the
is.
possible tariff environments that we've got. You know,
It is.
this is not a political thing at all.
No, we
It's
do
just
need
a
to move
fact of
forward.
life. But
Mm.
it's something really the tariff thing could drive manufacturing back into the States, which is really something that we need to do anyway, in my opinion, because that'll make us more resilient to things like the pandemic. We all remember how hard it was to find certain things during the pandemic, and that's because we didn't make it here.
Right. We need to learn to accept a little higher cost and get it done. That's all we have to do. And we're not quite there yet in our brains, but we'll get there.
Right.
I hope so anyway.
Yes, I do too. But this guy's best of luck to Mr. Tan.
I wish him luck too. I really think they need to succeed, but I don't think they will the way they're going unless he may announce something soon though. So let's give him an opportunity to do something.
I agree. Let's give him the opportunity to see if he can get it done. But I'm telling you right now, it's
so here we go again.
It's pretty bleak.
Yes.
You said 4 out of 7 years? Jeez.
Yes. 4.
Wow.
Yeah. 4th permanent CEO in 7 years. So wow.
Okay.
All right. So I'm gonna move us then to our tip of the week segment. And before I fully get to our tip of the week, I want to go ahead and remind everyone iTechGear was founded with the intent of making technology easy for everyone to use and understand. And this team specifically has dedicated their writing careers to this specific purpose. And every week, we're going to go ahead and feature a new computing tip authored by one of our experienced editors. And if you've got questions, requests, suggestions, concerns, comments, whatever, you can send all of that to tips@iTechGear.org. And if we use your suggestion or mention you or use it on the show, we'll give you the mention and give you your 15 seconds of fame. Mom will know who you are. There you go.
Along with our one listener, by the way.
Yes, that's Mom. So she'll know who you are, and she'll thank you profusely. So I want to go ahead and everybody, there's a lot of folks that are still using, of course, Windows. And our good friend, Mr. Ed Bott over at ZDNet has, and I really want to go ahead and mention this. And even though Dr. Mr. Larry McJunkin would agree that Mr. Ed Bott has got some really good content, he's a solid journalist. He won't necessarily agree with everything that Mr. Bott has said. Set in motion, especially this first one. These are 6 things that you should do after installing Windows 11. The first thing that is recommended is that you do, in fact, use a Microsoft account for maximum security. If your PC is managed in a corporate environment, you'll either have a domain account or you'll sign in with an Entra ID, formerly known as an Azure Active Directory ID. Either way, your administrator is the boss, not you. So there's a lot of folks out there who may, remember, hey, I used to be able to create a local account. And this is where Dr. Mr. McJunkin would probably have the objection, is he wants to use a local account and not a Microsoft account because it's what people have done for decades. All right. But the Microsoft account, however, does offer you some extra security items, which include turning on 2-factor authentication. You can use Windows Hello, which will allow you to use either your face or a fingerprint or specifically a PIN to sign in. But the biometrics offer an interesting set of additional security features for you so that nobody can just try to hack in. You can protect the contents of your system with strong encryption and BitLocker. If you do not copy down that BitLocker key, you're going to be hurting for certain if you forget your password. So make certain that you've either got a password, some kind of a password manager or whatever. And then you can also use Microsoft's account recovery tools to help you if you do some things. The second thing that you should do is clean up the crapware. Get rid of all that extra junk that you don't like or don't want. And
I would have made that number 1.
Well, this is going to be things like TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Spotify, Disney Plus, Prime Video, or any other kind of additional app that you don't necessarily want on your machine,
Anything
you
your
can
manufacturer
uninstall it.
put on it that you don't need, take it
Right,
off.
right. So you can
If
get
you
it out of
can.
there. Right. All right. You can also turn on the Windows Sandbox, and this will go ahead. It's a wonderful feature because it isolates all of your computing data within a fence, if you will. If you've got a Windows 11 Pro Enterprise or Education installation, you can instantly spin up a secure virtual machine without any complex setup, and it will actually go ahead and isolate all the stuff that happens within that virtual machine so that it won't pollute anything outside of it, which is also always a big problem. So keeps you away from viruses and whatnot.
A virtual sandbox is a great place to send your virtual kitty. So there you
go. This is true, and thank you for that. All right. You can also go ahead, clean up the start menu. All right. The Windows 11 start menu is I want to say it's severely simplified. All right. There's a section for pinned icons and then pinned recommendations, and you can choose whether to have more icons or more recommendations, and then you can stack. You can move those icons around and whatnot, and you can create folders by stacking icons on top of each other. So you can embed folders inside your start menu, which will allow you to bring some level of personalized organization to it. You can also put some interesting things on that they're actually calling folders, but I don't see that they're folders, but there are specific icons that'll be on the very bottom right corner of the start menu. This is the settings icon, your file explorer icon, your documents icon, downloads, music, pictures, videos, network, and a shortcut to your personal folders. There is a section in personalization and start called folders that will allow you to turn these specific icons on and off to get you quick access to those things that you might need. On the start menu on the start task bar, on the actual task bar, there's a couple of icons near the system tray that are widgets, and you can remove those. These things include a search button, the task view button, widgets, and Copilot. And you can also turn these on and off in the personalization task bar section of settings.
We definitely have a lot of conversation about turning off Copilot, don't we?
Oh, heck yes.
How to remove it. So this is a good one, kids.
Yep. So go ahead and turn these things on and off. I always turn off task view, and I try to turn off widgets because that's just your mouse flashes across that, and this whole big panel flies up on the right-hand side, and it takes up the entire right side of the screen. Widgets are a pain in the butt, so I like to get rid of those. And then, as I mentioned before, if you do turn on that full encryption, you're going to get a BitLocker encryption key. This is something that you will need to maintain and keep track of, because if you forget your password and you have to unlock BitLocker to get rid of the encryption in order to access the data on the drive, you need to see this. You have to save this thing. And if you have a Microsoft account, your system is encrypted by default, and it should automatically back up that encryption key. But there is a link in the show notes that we are putting in here directly to Mr. Bott's article that will go ahead and give you a couple of extra links how to find your BitLocker recovery key and to save a secure backup, a copy of it before it's too late. If you need to, and you're signed into with a Microsoft account, as I said, it's automatically backed up. You go to Microsoft.com/recovery key, sign in with the same Microsoft account, and there will be a long list of recovery keys that for different devices that you've used that account with. Find the computer that you need to unlock the drive on, and the latest date with it, and copy down that key, because you'll need to make certain that you use it to unlock your drive. And that's basically it. Those are the 6 things that you should do right after you install Windows on your computer. If you do these things, you're going to have a very customized and pretty solid Windows system that you're going to enjoy a heck of a lot more than you would have when you initially started it. Because, getting rid of Solitaire, Xbox, Spotify, Prime Video, or any of the other junk, and backing it, turning on encryption, using the sandbox, cleaning up your start menu and customizing it, you'll be much happier. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to move us now to our tip of the week segment. Or I'm sorry, from the tip of the week segment to the pick of the week. To the pick of the week.
Alrighty then.
Yes. And at this point, again, I want to go ahead and I want to remind everybody that our picks are really just things, they're typically hardware, software, and other items of interest that we've individually purchased and actually used, and that we like enough that we want to recommend them to you, our growing listener base. These aren't paid advertisements or anything that we have any kind of an affiliated marketing relationship with. If they were, the editorial policy over at iTechGear.org indicates that we have to let you know that up front before we tell you about the pick. These are things that we just sincerely believe in, and we want to bring them to you at the end of each show. Why?
Because we like you.
Yeah, yeah. Little more work, closer, but a little more work.
Yes.
Anyway, so what I want to go ahead and bring to everybody's attention, there are some things like pen lights and or other sort of specialty items. I still have a Surface Book 3 that I use quite often. And I have 1 or 2 Surface pens that go along with it. And this is the original Surface pen, not the slim pen, that long, oblong, sort of thin carpenter pencil, right? It looks like a carpenter's pencil, right? This is the original Surface pen, the round Surface pen. And it uses a specialty battery. It uses a quad A or a 4A battery. Everybody's heard of double A's. Everybody's heard of triple A's. Quad A's aren't easy to find. And you would think that they would be expensive because they're a specialty battery and they're hard to find, but I was able to locate on Amazon a smart quad A battery charger with 2 rechargeable quad A batteries, and I found it for under $10, kids. This is the smart quad A battery charger with 2 counts rechargeable quad A batteries, nickel metal hydride, 1.2 volt, 400 milliamps for 12,000 cycles or 1,200 cycles. And I'm telling you, for $10, $9.99, all right, via Prime, I was able to go ahead and get these things effectively overnighted to me here at the iTechGear Central for only $10. So it was actually pretty cool. So
what kind of battery life are you getting out of those now?
Decent.
I mean, they don't typically last
life.
as long as the original kind of batteries, but I do they can do pretty good.
Let me just say this. All right, depending on use, I've had them last for months. All right.
Yeah, that's awesome.
All right, and again, it's just a USB-A kind of battery charger. This little cartridge just plugs into a USB-A port. You stick the battery in there. The lights on the charger go from red to blue, and you're good to go. Red is charging, blue is charged, and that's where we're ready to go.
That's an excellent thing. Excellent thing. Yeah. I'd like to see USB-C though, kids. The world has shifted. I'd like to see that.
It is, and I would like to see USB-C too. But for $10, and for that active pen, right? For that active stylus pen, Surface pen, not bad for $10. So
not bad for $10. I agree.
Not bad for $10, and that, kids, That's this week's show. So this has been the iTechGear Weekly, episode number 125. You don't want to damage those dulcet tones. Recorded here live Sunday, March 16th, 2025, live from iTechGear Central. As I said, I'm Christopher Spera, and for Mr. Chris Gavula, brother Joe McLaughlin, and the missing in action doctor, Mr. Larry McJunkin, I want to say, hey, we will see you next time.